So thank you all, first of all, for volunteering or being voluntold to do this. But, you know, we feel like this is the right group of people to sort of represent the community in a conversation about Roy. So let me start here for the benefit of everybody. I think everybody here knows who you all are, but for the benefit of everybody that might be watching, let's introduce yourself and then talk about when you met Roy. What was the beginning of the relationship with Roy?
Well, I first met Roy at the
Introduce yourself. Introduce yourself. Oh, you just got the award, that's right, never mind. I'll just sit quietly, that's all I'm doing.
All right, I'm Pete Simonelli. I'm known to most of you. I first met Roy in 1973 at the very first convention, and we've been friends ever since. Been in contact and met with him regularly, both inside and outside of APBA. He was just a great guy. What else can I say about him? He's one of the finest gentlemen I ever met, and he was really a prince. He was one of the best. I mean, you all knew him, and there's really nothing more I can say. We all know how great he was in that area. He was the best. There's no question about it. My wife and I socialized with him and his wife. We used to go to Oreo games and see each other regularly. Roy was very generous with everyone. He organized a dinner for 10 of us, mostly APBA people. Leon Ozarowski, maybe some of you remember him, who also passed away, was Roy's good friend, as was Paul McGowan. Skeet was involved in some of those meetings, Vera Lincoln, Scott Lahotsky. Roy considered us all his family, and he did everything he could for us. And he did this in Baltimore and in Philadelphia. And we never turned down an invitation from him. He was just the kindest man you could imagine. And to this day, I truly miss him. I have some notes here, so I don't want to forget about anything.
We'll come back to that. Bill, why don't you tell us about when you first met Roy?
Oh, well, I can't answer that because I spent some time trying to think exactly when I first met Roy, but it had to be at one of the late '90s conventions, and then he certainly sought me out my first convention, introduced himself, and we had a very brief conversation. But then that year or a year later or so, we were in the same division, and we got chatting while playing, and we found out that I was from Baltimore, and that we had the Orioles in common. That was first. And over the years, various things came up in conversations, and we found out that we had very many same interests. Music, we both were pretty heavily into folk music, 60s type folk music. And then with books, interest in biography and history, and every once in a while I'd get a surprise book in the mail from Roy, and he would get one from me. And you never had to sign or say who it was, we knew.
Right.
And Roy loved great stories, and I think his taste in folk music ran toward those folk songs that had a story to them.
Right.
And then he was also incredibly modest and kind man who, over the years, I found out things after I knew him for many years. I found out at one point where whenever I was in Baltimore visit, while my mother was still alive, we'd go there and visit, and always would go to lunch with Roy. How to get my crab cakes every day. And then go back to his house and play a couple games of the day. One year, though, when I called and said, how about Tuesday or whatever the day was? And he said, well, I'll be a little late that day. That's my Meals on Wheels delivery day. And he'd been doing that for years, and I didn't know. On another occasion, something came up. Well, he was telling a story. He always had great stories. But this story was about Roy in a younger day when he was in the Army and after ROTC. And then it came out that he was a reserve lieutenant colonel. I had no idea about that. And I wonder how many in the APBA community. So there was so much more to Roy besides APBA. I mean, APBA was a major part of his life, but there was so much more as well.
I know that the lieutenant
maybe
colonel thing, I mean, that was a surprise to me, and I think, did you know that, Kevin?
No, I was shocked to
Yeah,
find
it
out.
was amazing. So Kevin, how about when you met him?
So I feel like I just barely met him because he met him in 1973. So, I just barely met him in 2001, and it was at APBA convention. And Roy was the kind of guy you wanted. My wife went with me to that. In fact, the only reason I went was because my wife said you should go to that convention. So we went, and Roy was the kind of guy that I wanted my wife to meet, so that she would think that APBA people were good people.
Aren't we?
So, Bill, I'm gonna come back to you. You mentioned playing game of the day. I think you probably played more games of the day against Roy than anybody else, be my guess.
Yeah, actually, our family, my wife Kathy, actually, her first game with someone other than me was with Roy. At the end of the day. She won that game, and somehow, when Roy posted it, he mentioned who the game was against. Instantly, Jim Say noticed that. And Jim was always attacking Roy's managerial skills, but he said, this is a new low. He just lost to a girl. So then, there's something else about, you mentioned meeting Roy at the first convention. Roy's description to me of his first convention was that how much he found it liberating. That there were other people, real people, successful people, who played the game like he did. So he found that really liberating. And actually, I myself, when I came to the game, I had played with kids in my neighborhood growing up, and when I was an adult playing, I played it late at night with, shades pulled. So, but at the first convention that I went, I understood what he meant when he said he found it liberating.
So Pete, we were talking earlier today, and you had a couple of really good stories about Roy. Why don't you share that with the fine folks?
First of
here?
all, Bill reminded me of a couple of things. Roy would send me a book occasionally, usually about ballparks, because he knew I'd gone around to most of the ballparks in existence. And he was a big fan of Kringles, the pastry that comes out of Wisconsin. And he would always send us one every year, and then we got to the point where we'd be exchanging them. He did it with Jim Shea as well, but he said what Jim Shea would do is try to eat as much of it as possible before his wife got home. But we'll miss the little things like that. But that was part of the whole personal connection, which was certainly there and very valuable and enjoyable, worthwhile. And then there are Roy's contributions to APBA, which are numerous. He wrote for the APBA Journal in the very beginning when I met him, and he also helped out the game company itself in different ways. And they had designated 3 ambassadors. One was Don Provisiero, Jim Shea, and Roy. And what Roy did was they went around to stores and different places and demonstrated the game to generate interest in APBA and put it up for sale in retail stores. And I even remember once I was in Allentown, PA, and I saw the game in the store window. This is in the late 70s. So obviously Roy had a hand in that. That was his territory. And again, one of his contributions.
How about the tournament?
The tournament, or?
Did you tell me that he set up the thing in '99?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to get to that.
I'm
right.
sorry.
So
I'm prompting you. That's what I'm trying to do, is prompt you.
That was on the next page.
Thought it was helping. Thought it was helping. You were looking, I thought I'd
I have
help.
to write things down nowadays, or we're going to forget them.
What are you going to do with that?
So I don't have to write the whole speech, though, just the topic.
Listen, I was just trying to help you. I was giving you a pointer.
Thank you. So where were we? Oh, what a lot of people don't know is that Roy organized, in my mind, was the first local type tournament. He called it the mini camp, 1999, in the APBA headquarters. I don't know, is there anybody here who attended that thing besides you, Skeet? Skeet was there. You didn't win, though.
No.
I know, I remember that. Okay.
Surprise to no one.
He organized this, was very successful, and but in line with that, one of the things that happened was when he was arranging it, he wanted to have 5 teams in a division. But then when he realized somebody'd have to have a bye all the time, he got kind of flustered and couldn't believe that he overlooked that. But it got resolved. I think there was a nice even number of 36 players. So it all worked out very nicely.
He was innovative, really innovative, Roy. When you think about it, he innovated a lot of things for the community itself.
Yes,
Right?
the community. And
Yeah.
I believe, in my mind, that was the first tournament outside of a convention of its kind. I don't think there was any now we have numerous tournaments. I don't think there were any like that back in those days. And I think this was the first one. He was probably the father of local tournaments. I mean, sometimes you'd read in the journal about people having a tournament in a house and they have 6 people come in, but it wasn't something that's advertised and you could register and sign up for like you have now. So I think we owe that idea to him.
Was that in the journal, the mini camp thing?
Yes, it
It was
was.
written up in the journal?
Yeah.
Did Roy write it up himself, or did
That I don't recall, but it would have been in the summer of '99.
99?
I remember reading it in the journal. I'm sure
Yeah.
it was there.
Yeah.
So Kevin, let me come back to you.
Yeah.
One of the things about Roy that sort of sets him apart from the community at large, in addition to all the things we talked about, is Roy owned every freaking thing they ever made. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
He told me several times, and I'm sure he told lots of people, that one of his claims to fame was that he owned every, so let me get the quote, he owned every card set that APBA ever sold. So my claim to fame is that I own all the card sets for all the games APBA has ever sold. He said that many times. And people probably want to know why he selected me to receive his
And
collection.
people may not know that, so explain that. Yeah.
And the reason is, I have no idea what the reason is, actually. So, what happened was it was in this building upstairs, and he came up to me, it was 2013, and he said, kind of like like he just had an epiphany. I don't know if he just talked to somebody and they suggested maybe, but he came up to me and he said, "How would you like to be the heir to my APBA collection?" And I was like, me, you're going to live longer than I am. And he thought about it, but it took him back. He went, and he thought about it for a second. He goes, no. Would you be willing to do that or not? And I said, yeah, if you want me to do that, I will do that. He goes, it's a lot of things, it's a lot of stuff. It's a big collection. I said, if you want me to do it, I will do it. And so he said, well, we'll set up. I'll send you a letter this winter, which he did. He sent me a letter, I think, every January after that. And he would say, I want you to know what's going on with our collection.
Oh,
That's what he called it. He said, this is what's going on with our collection. I'm doing this, or this is here, or I've done that, or we got this, or whatever. And one day, he sent me an email, and he said, after 66 years of collecting everything APBA, I have finally come to my senses. I have made the grand decision not to purchase any products I have no plans to play with. And he gave me 2 reasons. Why did he feel like he had to give me 2 reasons? He gave me 2 reasons. Storage space is becoming problematic, and as I said, I have finally come to my senses. Those are his 2 reasons. And I think he was concerned because he had promised me everything APBA had ever made. And now he's going to have to say almost everything, right? It's almost everything APBA has ever made. And I think he was concerned that he was going to let me down.
And you've seen the collection at this point,
And the
right?
collection is humongous.
Yeah.
Describe it for a second for the people, and then
Well,
Bill, I'll let you do that too. Go ahead.
Yeah, Bill's been there. You've been there, and it's a climate controlled storage unit that has shelving on both sides and the back with all. There's a box over here. It's got bank boxes, is what he calls them.
That's
And
what
it-
they're called. That's why he calls them that.
Well, I never called them that. I don't work for a bank. But he called them bank boxes. He said, and they've got all the seasons. So he had 1901, and he had the 1901 baseball set in there, and all the way up to like 1960, you'd have the 1960 baseball set, and the 1960 football set, and the 1960 hockey set, and not basketball yet, I don't
Yeah.
think. He had 1960 basketball?
No, I didn't start till
I didn't think
67.
so, yeah. That's what I thought. So there's the bank box right there. So he's got them they're just lining all through that.
1912.
There it is right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So go ahead, Bill.
Just a minor thing that Roy talked to me about, that he was worried he didn't have everything. And the reason was there were, between the first golf set and the second one, there was this small set of, I think it was six
golfers.
And he didn't have those. And he claimed that they were never advertised, and that's the reason. So, a
complained
couple
about that.
years later, I finally said, I have them, but I'm not going to use them, so I'll give them to Roy. So we talked at least 2 or 3 times every month. So when I said, I want to send you those 6 golfers, he said, somebody else already did.
It was Dom,
That
now.
was me.
It was Don, yeah.
That was me.
He complained about that in every convention, that he'd have those 6 cards. And I was like,
Yeah.
you want 1,000,000 cards? You'll probably be all right.
He sent me an email,
Yeah.
and he said, "You have those cards," because I had advertised them or something. So I had this whole golf stuff that a friend of mine, he had passed away, and he left me everything. And I didn't know how to golf. I never bought a golf set, so I didn't know what to do with them. So I put them up, and then I said, "What are these?" You know, I think it was 4 or 6, whatever they were, players. And he wrote me an email. He said, "That's the only thing I don't have." So I said, "Well, I'll get back to you once I know what they're worth." I said, "Let me get some other bidders first." So what happened was I put it on the side, and then one day I was cleaning up, and I came across the set, and I said to myself, I said, what would my friend Dennis want me to do? Would he want me to sell these to a stranger, or would he want me to give these to Roy? And so I sent them to Roy, and I completed his collection.
Well, you saved my 6.
Now you can sell them.
You know, the thing about collecting, right? All of us play, a lot of us collect too. Roy really loved the idea of collecting and filling it. When I first met him, he didn't have them all. And he loved that he was, that was a part of the joy of the game for him, was to collect all these older stuff. So Kim, let me go back to you for a second. You were talking a little bit about when you first met him, and I think you were going to tell a story. Did you have a story you wanted to tell us there?
No, I'm sorry. I got emotional. I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry
but
about
I
that.
just just the idea that my wife thought that people like him and Dusty Welsh did what I did, which she didn't understand why I was doing it, and I think some of the wives can understand, and some of the guys here know their wives don't understand. So it just helped me in the next 25 years and counting now of my marriage that it's not so weird that somebody as obviously successful as Roy would do the same thing that I do.
Right.
I do have a quick couple of stories I'd like to share.
I would
if
love
it's
that.
okay. So first of all, I wanted to show this picture. You won't be able to see it back there, but you've seen it in the AJ before. This is a picture of Melanie Langhans and a league mate of Roy's, and she threw out the first. It says she tossed out the first dice of the opener of their league, and also says that Melanie didn't bring her dad any luck, though, as the person pictured here, Peter DeMarco, swept a 4-game series. So I asked Roy about that, and he said, he lost the first 4 games, but he lost the next 3 too. He lost 7 in a row. He was 0-7 to start the league. Now normally that's where Roy would leave the story off. He would just leave it like that he was 0-7. But what you maybe don't know is he won the division that year. He started out 0-7 and won the division. So Melanie did give him good luck, even though the Abbott Journal said he didn't. He also, Roy told me that afternoon, before that series started, he was in a very high-level meeting, and they were discussing some very heavy topics about the future technology that they were expected to require at his work, which was McCormick, I believe.
McCormick's Place, yeah.
Yeah. And so during that meeting, though, when they're talking about the future of the company, he couldn't keep his mind on what they're talking about because he was so excited about the series, which he lost. But then he said, but 42 years, and I don't remember what year this was, he told me this, but he said 42 years and 3,772 face-to-face games later, the excitement isn't the same, but the enjoyment certainly is. So Roy enjoyed playing APBA till the end. So I talked to Melanie about what her story might be, Melanie Langhans, about what her story might be that she'd want us to know. And she said that she remembered that her dad used to have the league draft at his house, at their house. And she was excited about that because he would go out and get McDonald's for all the league and for her too. So she knew that league draft day meant that she was going to get McDonald's. So that was exciting for her. She also remembers, somebody mentioned Paul McGowan, I think it was Pete. She also mentions that she remembers driving with her dad, with Roy, to APBA to pick up the new card sets in snowstorms. In fact, one time,
Yeah.
Wait until a snowstorm.
always,
Yeah, I have exact change.
always. And she said, so one time they went off the road and got stuck in a ditch, and Paul McGowan had to come and get them out of the ditch. And for people who don't know who Paul McGowan is, he was Honest John on the APBA Delphi forums. He was Honest John. And then, so real quickly, if I can, I asked Michael the same thing, and he wanted to extend their appreciation for all of us, for the APBA community. And he has very fond memories of when his dad would have to work late at McCormick, and he and his sister Melanie would go to the office to wait for him to be able to get off work, and they would play the APBA DOS game on the computer while they waited. He also remembers, and I think a lot of the wives and family members will identify with this too, that the sound of the dice shaking is a fond memory of Michael's, and he has a dice shaker on his desk next to him.
So you're saying that Roy had the DOS APBA game on his work computer? That sounds right.
It was on a computer that they had access to. I don't know who owned the computer.
It's okay, he can't get fired now. So Pete, let me come
One more story?
I was just gonna come back to you because you had the good story about his retirement, so maybe you'll tell that one.
Regarding the game of the day, you
There you
know, a fair number of us have been lucky enough to have played the game of the day face to face, and I did one time. But he had some kind of pitching rotation set up for these teams. And it seemed like, and someone else confirmed this to me, that his pitcher was usually an A and yours was a D.
I've heard that.
That's a Jim Say claim.
I've heard that.
And,
Of course, Roy won the game.
yeah, when you
your best
play the
hitter.
game of the day, and he would often know that I would be coming to visit my mom or my daughter in Virginia and come to Baltimore when I'd be coming, and he'd make sure that the schedule worked out that there was an Oriole game for me to play.
Right.
But the other manager was allowed to make whatever lineup he wanted. But the pitcher was fixed by the rotation, and you were also informed who was in the hole for the next two games, so you weren't gonna.
Couldn't
Use them in relief.
So,
And also he had hitters.
and
already.
he also had a little card or slip of paper in each envelope that told you who was injured that
Right,
day.
it was always your cleanup hitter. Something like that. I played the 78 Red Sox, and Jim Rice is hurt. I said, Jim Rice played every game. Any other stories for us?
Oh, the only other story, I think everybody's familiar with the time here, not too long ago, Roy was in the tournament and he used the player McGraw, I believe, who had no at-bats, was not eligible. So Roy was
He missed
kind
the
of
20 at-bat
embarrassed
limit by 20
about
at-bats.
that.
Yeah, that was funny. So, first of all, thank you all. Let's wrap it up with this one. What do you think, and Kevin, I'll start with you and come this way this time. What do you think is Roy's legacy to this community?
I don't know about to the community. Maybe Pete and Bill can talk about that more. What I can tell you about Roy is there are some people in this world that make you feel like you're his best friend.
100%.
And Roy had that ability.
He definitely did. He did that for everybody, I think. Bill?
When I first, you open the company website, and you quickly go to what you're looking for. But I noticed that it's more than a game, it's a community one time. And then I realized the first thing that occurred to me was Roy. That community, to a large extent, was nurtured by Roy. He also, one thing that hasn't been mentioned here, but he founded after the first convention, he met Leon Erzowitz, I'm not sure how to pronounce
No,
it.
nobody. I don't think Leon knew how to pronounce it.
And they organized the Baltimore-Washington League.
That's right.
And Roy's Cockeysville exit.
Cockeysville exit. That's right.
I know at one time I was visiting him in his game room, he had framed baseball cards of his championship teams. So, but that league is still going today. And I'm not sure exactly why. One other thing with Roy's generosity was he provided me with postseason tickets several times over the last couple of decades. When here I am 800 miles away, and that's it. When Roy's health meant that he couldn't continue with his season tickets, his partial season tickets, because of the walk from parking to the seat, he started watching every game on TV. And I'd had a MLB subscription and watched almost every game. So we'd end up texting each other throughout the game. And it was like we were sitting next to each other.
That's so great.
It just, and
I was
that,
there for some of that.
as much as I miss Roy all the time, when the season started this year, it really hurt.
Oh, yeah.
And now, I'm not sure what would have happened, what we would have said 2 nights ago, when the Orioles had an 8-0 lead and ended up losing 12-8. So, yeah, those texts, after a while, by accident, I had texted my brother earlier, and somehow that ended up, so now there's 3 of us sitting there texting back and forth. And then later, Tom, the last meal I had with Roy was Christmas the year before he died, when we were visiting. And my brother was in town, and his wife joined us. And at my mother's funeral, Roy was there. And I believe other friends of ours, at least one, mentioned that Roy came to his mother's funeral. And my brothers had several of his friends there. And Roy knew them. It turned out that there's a lot of McCormick friends, but we had never drawn the connection until that time. So I've been speaking too much.
No, you haven't. You've been telling good stories. Go ahead. Pete, what do you got for us?
Roy was so highly thought of. Scott Lahotsky arranged an 80th birthday party for him, which some of you here attended. Steve, John, Bill, of course,
Me.
Rebecca, Randy. Who else? You were there, right? I'm sorry, I forgot you.
Me again.
Skeet was there?
What do you want me to count you twice?
Yes, yes. Skeet was just barely there. He got lost getting it.
I just took the
So,
long one.
that's right, you were on the other side of the water, right? I remember that.
That's right.
Okay, so that was, another one of our outside of APBA get-togethers, because we all enjoyed each other's company, we were all friends, and it was a good day in my life, that particular party. And, Roy, as far as, thinking about him, he goes back to the early days of APBA, and he was what I consider a pioneer. We were all, sort of coming together then, and the early conventions were not organized by APBA. Ben Weiser put those on, and thanks to him and the APBA Journal at that time, put out by the Gatos brothers, everything started to come together, and Roy was an integral part of that. And we owe a lot to him. He made a lot of contributions, and he did it all for the community. That was his main goal, and I'm very grateful for having known him and for all he did. It'd be difficult for all his contributions to be matched.
Very well said.
Can I just add one more thing?
No.
I just want to point out that, and maybe somebody else has noticed this, I don't know, but Roy's last post was on the 13th of April and of last year. And it was a happy birthday thread, and his last post was, "Thank you all to my many brothers."
That's right.
Yeah. One more thing, he was not with us here last year, but he did attend the Robert Henry tournament last July, and that was the last time I saw him.
Yeah.
Or I guess maybe you saw him after that, Bill, I don't know, but that was
He
it.
played in
And
that tournament. I saw him there too. He
Yeah, you were
played.
there,
Yeah.
right?
That's
And
awesome.
last time I talked to him was Thanksgiving time, and he told me his daughter was coming to visit, and a month later, he was gone.
Yeah.
May you rest in peace.
Absolutely. So how about a nice hand for our panel? So, So, obviously, John and I talked about this for a while, because we know there's a lot of people here that probably have stories about Roy that they'd like to share, but, you know, there's a time element to this, and you can't have 25 people coming up here and telling stories, some would be the same, and we'd be here all night. But then it occurred to me, we are probably going to be here all night, right? So tell your stories, right? When you're at the tables and we're all sitting around playing games, tell your Roy stories, right? He taught me how to play the boxing game after one of these one night. He played a game of the day, and I rolled a 3-run homer to win the game at the bottom of the ninth, and I still don't think he got over it. It was the year that I won the tournament, and it was my favorite moment in the whole weekend when I beat Roy with game of the day. You know, what's funny is, I've tried to start to tell my Roy stories because I was trying to moderate, but of course I have Roy stories, except you've heard them all, because literally Brian said what I was going to say. It's weird, and we didn't talk about it at all.
That means we don't have enough stories.
We don't have enough stories? Boy, that's the best one. But, you know, when I showed up with a 9-year-old to this thing in Lancaster, a 9-year-old that was quite sure he was going to win, you could be surprised to find, you know, he's very calm now, but he used to be pretty bold and ready to go.
Arrogant.
Not like he was arrogant, that's the right word. Roy couldn't have been better to my son. And not everybody in the room that day was thrilled to be playing a 9-year-old who had never played the game before, really. And Roy kept coming back to me and saying he's having a great time. He's keeping score. He doesn't know how to keep score. We'll set that aside, Roy. It's fine. And I don't know that Brian and I would be standing here tonight if Roy hadn't done that, because I'm not sure we would have come back for the second one. If he had had a bad time, you know, we might not have come back. So, you know, and I'm so lucky to be part of this community, and I know Brian feels that way. He would never say it because he's too cool, but I'll say it for him. We know that we're looking. You said arrogant. So I hope that his children were watching this. I hope they heard some stuff maybe they didn't know about their dad. And I hope that all of you will tell your stories. I don't think that this group will ever gather again, whether it's here or in a regional tournament, and not think about Roy. And that, I think, is his legacy. He just touched us all. So with that, thank you all very much. Somebody go get me a beer vodka. Really well done.
You did a great job.
You should have. I almost done it.